Okay, thank you. Thanks for the introduction. Yes, my name is Maciej Korczynski. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at TU Delft. And today I will present our ongoing work on active security measurements for TLDs and hosting providers. It's a part of Remedy's TLD project in collaboration with SIDN and National Cybersecurity Center. Oh. Is it? Where is the? Oh, it's okay. Okay, sorry. Okay. Yeah. So first of all, very briefly about the Remedy's TLD project itself. So what we do within the project, we collect large data sets on different security incidents, in particular different blacklists of domains using command and control, malware, phishing, and so on and so on. We also make our active measurements, and we try to structurize the complex ecosystem of DNS. And our ultimate goal is to create security reputation metrics for different market players, but we explicitly distinguish those metrics from the performance of different players, because we already know that they are driven by multiple factors and not just by the performance of one, for example, hosting provider or registrar. So we define security metrics at three different layers. First, we compare TLDs like .nl with a .com. We verify if there are more certain type of attacks, for example, phishing attacks, distributed denial of service attacks from .nl, .com, and other TLDs. At second layer, we propose security metrics for market players related to TLDs. Those are infrastructure providers, registrars, hosting providers, DNS service providers, and so on. And before, Giovanni introduced the concept of maliciously registered domains and, for example, hacked domains. And in this case, the examples of metrics here would be the number of maliciously registered domains per registrar or hacked domains per hosting providers and, for example, their uptimes, which means the time that it takes for the company to take it down. And the third layer is a refinement of the second one, and we assign some scores, some reputation to network resources managed by each of the players. And here we can imagine number of open resolvers per AS or some misbehaving authoritative name servers. Okay, so I introduced the Remedy's TLD project. Now I will move more to our active measurements of the DNS infrastructure and uptimes of phishing domains for hosting providers. So every month we randomly select 1 million domains, and we make active scans of their zone files and the corresponding also DNS infrastructure. We search for more than 80 different types of misconfigurations, and those can be at very different levels, like just noticed, warnings, then errors, all critical misconfigurations. Why? To see some long-term trends, like, for example, the implementation of DNSSEC, or but also at the very local level, to see that, for example, some hosting providers have certain misconfigurations in their, for example, zone files. And we aggregate those measurements per TLDs, autonomous systems, also hosting providers. So here is one example. Here we check the DNS usage per top-level domains. So every bar here represents a different TLD. On x-axis, we present their identification number instead of the TLD. And on y-axis, we have the percentage of domains that do not follow a specification, didn't put DNSSEC in place. So as you can see, not many TLDs actually are putting any incentives there, but there are a few good examples. .nl is, of course, one of them. Also .cz, Norway, Sweden, .nu. Another interesting example here, we were verifying the UDP connectivity on the port 53, and surprisingly, there are some TLDs that, for example, the one on the very right, 40% do not respond to UDP queries on port 53. Why bother? Another example here, we were verifying if the answers are authoritative, and same thing. In some cases, even 70% of responses to our queries are not authoritative. Okay. So those were just examples. We have like many more statistics there. So now active measurements of uptimes. So what is uptime in fact? Uptime is the time, as I mentioned before, required for the entity to take down the maliciously registered or compromised website. And again, here to track uptimes, there are many complexities. One of them is there are different approaches for maliciously registered domains, different approaches, of course, for compromised websites. Things that we see when we constantly verify uptimes and scan for uptimes, at some point we are simply blacklisted by the attackers. For compromised websites, sometimes simply we believe that the problem was mitigated, but then we see some reinfections. We simply cannot really trust and that end users have a really security background here. So before explaining a bit more about uptimes, I would like to first start with one of the also ongoing projects related to active measurements of uptimes. It's called Clean Netherlands. Probably some of you heard about it. So it's the project between TU Delft, Dutch police, and ACM. And it's to enhance the self-cleaning ability of the Dutch hosting market by promoting best practices and awareness. And part of the remedies project is used there. We created some security metrics, and we attributed them to hosting markets, more specifically to AS operators. And we tried to find some driving factors for certain behaviors. So why I'm saying this, because at some point, at the very beginning of this research, we contacted hosting providers, some of them, and we asked how they feel about the metrics that we proposed. And the metrics were, that time, mostly about the concentration of badness per ASs. And there are two main concerns, where first, that the aggregation level maybe should be, instead of ASs, we should go a little bit further and do it at the organization level. And that's actually what we're doing also now. Why? Because some resellers within the big hosting provider, AS operator, or few of them, might be actually responsible for the great majority of badness within the AS. The second concern were indeed uptimes. At that time, we had very limited data sets on uptimes, and actually uptimes give a little bit different signal than the concentrations of badness. Here is like uptimes say more about how fast providers act when the abuse happens. So that's why we, of course, did this work, but there was another very interesting question, and this is part of also our ongoing research. we wanted to know what type of services offered by hosting providers attract, let's say, more the attackers. So what we did, instead of checking uptimes for a single player, we tried to aggregate different types of hosting providers and then verify if the uptimes are somehow different. Again, why? Because, for example, managed hosting and managed hosting, the responsibility then for cleaning is a little bit different. In one case, it's hosting provider. In another case, it's more on resellers or clients in general. So what we did, we distinguished some properties like the size of the allocated IP space, percentage of the IP space used only for web hosting or in particular on shared hosting, then also the average density of domains per IP. And we created 10 different clusters, 10 different groups of providers. An example of such group can be the group where we have basically only shared hosting providers and what's their what's their business there. So they have very few or several IP addresses at most, and all of them are used for hosting, in particular shared hosting, and we see even thousands of domains per just one IP. And we checked if those clusters somehow are different in terms of uptimes. So here, each bar represents a different group of hosting providers, and on y-axis we have a mean time the blacklisted websites stay online in hours. And for example, here this is the group that I mentioned before, purely shared hosting, and here the uptime is really high. It's like 140 hours on average per website. There are two other interesting cases. Here we see two groups of really large hosting providers in terms of their IP space. It's even hundreds of thousands of IPs within their owned IP space. And here we see that the type of services is very different. Only 5% of IP space is used for shared hosting, but again, the absolute number of domains on shared hosting is really huge. That's why we see also very high uptimes for those groups. On the other hand, we have another example of hosting providers, of providers in general here. Again, really big ones, and very tiny, even very small part is for hosting, and then the shared hosting is almost not there. And here we suspect that it's more some dedicated services, and the mean time also of the blacklisted website is much smaller. Okay, so I presented the two cases, reputation metrics for TLDs based on on active scans of DNS infrastructure, and also of some market players here, hosting providers, based on the measurements of uptimes. And we try always to find the driving factors for certain behaviors. So why the attackers are more interested in certain types of domains in certain hosting provider. So also, please let us know if you have any questions about this research methods, also blacklists that we are using, so that we can put you in touch with appropriate entities like Google Safe Browsing and so on, so that you can potentially, if there are hosting providers here, I'm sure there are, you could incorporate those blacklists into your abuse handling software. Also, let us know about some policy changes or pricing changes or abuse handling initiatives. We're especially interested, of course, in Abuse.io now. If you put it somewhere in place, and if you let us know also at which point, then we can definitely measure if that has effect on in repetition metrics that we are creating. So I guess that's it. Okay, now it's stuck. But okay, thank you. Oh, here we are.
Okay, thank you, Maciej. Are there any questions?
Do you get any questions? Do you get any questions about hidden services like in the Tor network? Or do you scan something in that space?
We are considering it, but it's, I would say, future work. But definitely we are thinking about this, yes.
Okay.
But so far we could talk offline, I guess, also.
Thanks, Maciej. Good presentation. But full disclosure, I used to work with his team, but I'm not in this project. But I have a question about like when you see a malicious, about your sources of data. So where do you get this blacklist from, and how long you think is the time in between the site being compromised and showing up in your blacklist, because that could affect also that time.
So for compromised websites, it's easier, right? Because you can then, sorry, not compromised websites. For maliciously registered website, it's easier. You will see you will take the registration date, then the first scene, and so on. But I cannot answer for compromised websites. But actually, I had a question for your presentation, and it's very related. So we have some time, right?
We have to.
Great.
Should
So
be interesting.
the question is, do you see a lot of malware domains? Domains used in activities other than actually phishing?
We see so in this first part that I just focused on the newly registered, we see a lot of redirects for gambling websites, adult content, malware as well. Sometimes like this iPhone thing, you want to win an iPhone for 50 euros or whatever, and then in the end you have to download something. But there's no such a clear trend in regards like, oh, it's like 80% malware. No, it's all over the place.
Okay, and for validation, you are cross-checking with blacklists, right?
Actually, you download all the content on the website.
You do.
You screenshots as well, and we check in blacklists.
Because maybe instead of checking them in blacklist, straight away when they're registered and when you suspect them, then go with, for example, VirusTotal and submit the full domain and URL, and they will send it to multiple sandboxes, and we'll check them.
That's a very good idea.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, Maciej, I've seen your presentation before, and I think you also mentioned that the first time you did this research, or I don't know, in the start of it, you looked at ASs, and now you've decided to change that to, I don't know, types of, I don't know, services within the AS or something. Mm-hmm. Is that correct? Do you see a difference in what's the result of badness of, I don't know, providers or?
So I'm guessing that what you would be more, you were very interested would be like which resellers are within your AS, or you would be more interested in what type of services attract more badness?
Well, for the business I work for, I would be interested in the resellers because
of course.
Offer.
Yeah. So we didn't take a look very, very carefully there yet. Mm-hmm. We are getting there, but we see sometimes trends that really one or few entities are responsible for the great majority of badness within the AS. Mm-hmm. Right. So,
and to
some extent, it's good news, right?
Yeah.
Because as a big hosting provider, you might try to eliminate some
Yeah,
part of
resellers.
Exactly, exactly. If they are not, you know, the main, you know, reseller of
Yeah.
yours, then
Wow,
that
yeah.
would not be.
I have a second question. Do I understand correctly that you are using different, well, blacklist or different sources now as well? Because I know you started with 2 or 3, I don't know exactly. And do you see a difference in the results as well because you use more?
So starting from the very beginning, we had very complete list, including stop badware. I think we at some point we also exchanged some emails with Bart, and he asked for stop badware. But now we will be getting also data from Google Safe Browsing, but it's not there yet. But as soon as we have some more results, then definitely we will incorporate them. But the good thing already about those metrics is that there are really various types of data sets. So there is malware, there is command and control, there is stop badware, that there is a Fortinet, ESET. So there is a really different range of also types. So it gives really different views on the market. Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Is there any way, maybe you know about DMARC for email? You know about it? The standard DMARC?
Sorry, no.
Okay, maybe then I see ik zie jou knikken hier. So you know, do you do anything with the? Because I think that the forensic data that you can get from DMARC, you can really shorten the site takedown time if you use those data. But maybe after this session we can have a chat on that.
That would be great. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. So
Thank you.
if there are no further questions, then thank you, Maciej, for the presentation.
Thank you.